Hi guys, happy Fandom Freakout Friday. I'm going to quickly tell you guys about two different fandoms. So we're going to start with Supernatural, which is about two brothers going demon hunting. Basically, John, Sam, and Dean Winchester are a family. Sam and Dean's mom / John's wife, Mary, dies because she's killed by a demon. So then John starts hunting demons with Sam and Dean, even though they're little kids, and then eventually Sam goes off to law school, and Dean kind of resents him for it, but then John goes missing, so Dean asks Sam for help, and Sam doesn't want to help, but he still does. And then they're looking for their dad, but they don't find him, and then they come back, and Sam's girlfriend gets killed by the same demon that killed their mom, which is really upsetting. So then Sam decides to keep hunting, and he and Dean go hunting a lot, and they're trying to find their dad, and then eventually they find their dad, and then they end up in the hospital, and then Dean's gonna die, so John goes and makes a deal that if Dean doesn't die, he'll go to hell. So he goes to hell, and Dean lives. And then eventually hell is accidentally opened, so all these demons are out in the world, which is a huge problem. So then Sam and Dean are kind of trying to keep things under control, and then it turns out that Sam is supposed to start the apocalypse, and there's this black-eyed demon bitch named Ruby who's supposed to be who's claiming to help him not stop the apocalypse, but in all honesty, she's helping him start the apocalypse. And then there's Castiel, who is trying to help, and Uriel, who are trying to help Dean stop Sam from starting the apocalypse. They're angels. But then they change their mind, except for Castiel, and decide that the angels actually want to take over the world. So Castiel's trying to help Dean continue to stop the apocalypse, but then Sam starts the apocalypse anyway, and then eventually Sam ends up going to hell. And then Dean makes a deal saying that he'll go to hell in a year if Sam doesn't have to. So then Sam comes back, and then they're together for a year, and then Dean goes to hell, but then Dean gets pulled out of hell by Castiel, and then so that's really weird. And then Sam is supposed to become Lucifer, and Dean is supposed to kind of like fight him and stuff, and Castiel wants to fight him, and then Sam fights Lucifer, but then ends up getting thrown into hell, and then Sam gets taken back out of hell, but he doesn't have a soul anymore, which is terrifying. And then they consult with Death and ask Death to help Sam get his soul back, so Death does, but he puts a wallop in Sam's head that Sam isn't supposed to scratch, because if he scratches it, he'll remember everything. But then Sam scratches it, so now Lucifer is everywhere, and then Castiel turns into God, and then he turns into Leviathan, and Leviathan is terrifying because he's a crazy motherfucker, and we're afraid of him. And that's in the 7th season, and the 7th season is really good, because the 6th season sucked balls, but the 7th season got so much better, which is fantastic, because it was not fun when it sucked balls. So that's basically what I'm going to tell you. Oh, also, Gabriel, the trickster, is my favorite character. He's also an angel. Anyway. Oh, and everyone ships Sammy, or Dean and Castiel, or at least a lot of people do, and some people ship Sam and Dean, but I don't. Okay, so next I'm going to tell you guys about Bear Pop Opera, because that's my favorite, and so that's what I'm the biggest fangirl over. And basically, Bear Pop Opera is this musical about 5 kids in boarding school. Jason and Peter are in love, and that's a problem because they're a Catholic boarding school. And then there's Nadia, Jason's twin sister, who really has a lot of self-esteem issues, and she's kind of lonely. And then there's Ivy, who's Nadia's roommate / nemesis. They hate each other, and Ivy's in love with Jason. And then there's Matt, who's in love with Ivy, so he hates Jason, and Jason's always better than Matt. And then they all audition for Romeo and Juliet, and Jason gets Romeo over Matt, and Matt's pissed. Ivy gets Juliet, and Nadia gets the nurse. Ivy and Jason are both kind of happy and stuff, so that's all good. And then they go to a rave, and Matt sees Peter and Jason kiss, which is a problem. And Peter wants to come out, but Jason doesn't. So that kind of adds some tension. But then they go to Ivy's birthday party, where everyone's pretty much drunk, and high. And then Peter's high and wants to come out, and Jason's like, no, this is over. And then Jason goes off with Ivy, and they have sex. And Peter and Matt are upset about that. So they're drunk and talking to each other, and then Peter admits to Matt that they're gay, that he and Jason are gay. So that's the end of the first act. And then in the second act, Peter finally comes out to his mom, and then he's talking to Sister Chantel, the black soul power nurse, or nun, who's awesome. And Sister Chantel basically tells him, hey, it's okay, God don't make no trash. And then she says, if you're wondering why I'm a fan, it's because there's a black woman inside the soul of every gay man. Which, in my opinion, is possibly the best line in any musical ever. Really. So then, basically, Ivy tries to tell Jason that she's pregnant while Jason is working on his valedictorian speech, and he thinks she's lying, but then he realizes that she's telling the truth. And then Matt shows up. And Matt's like, hey everyone, Jason and Peter are gay. And then Jason asks Peter for help, and Peter's like, well, I already tried. And Jason's like, no, you didn't. Fuck you. And then Peter's really upset, and Jason's really upset. And then Jason goes and talks to the priest, who's basically like, no, I'm sorry, it's not okay. And it's really sad. And then Jason and Peter, I guess, just are having trouble, and then Jason takes a bunch of GHB and then goes and talks to Peter and confesses his love in the song Bear. And he says, the most heartbreaking line is when Jason says, please understand that I tried, and Peter says, it's not goodbye, but it is, because then Jason dies in Peter's arms from the GHB overdose. It's just, oh, it's so sad. And then at graduation, everyone's addressing Jason, and Nadia's like, I thought we'd be able to talk about things, I thought we'd be okay, I don't know how this happened, but I love you and I miss you and you're still here with me. And then Ivy's like, I don't even know what to do anymore, I have this baby, what am I supposed to do with it? And then Matt is like, what if we were silent or if we had spoken? Which to me sounds like he's saying, we could have done something and what I did was wrong, because he knows what he did was wrong. And then Peter's like, how did this even happen? It was such a simple love, and now it's gone, everything's wrong. And then the closing line is, it's so hard to find your way when you have no voice to guide you home. Well, there are a few lines after that, but that's like the closing big line. And then, okay, so basically in the original version, Michael Arden played Peter, John Hill played Jason, and Jenna Lee Green played Ivy. And then the other person I'm really excited about is that Jim Price played the priest, and I love Jim Price. There's also possibly going to be a revival version in which Andy Miantis is playing Peter, which is awesome, because that means it might go on Broadway. I finished reading Ordinary People. I absolutely loved it. And now I'm going to start reading The King's Damsel. I will hear from Sarah tomorrow.